Okay. Hello, everyone. This class is being given live as well. So uh, we there's a couple of things that I want to just talk about related to the Haggadah. I just want to go review of some of the points that I made in the past classes. And these points are essential, I believe, not only to properly doing the evening, but also to the survival of the Jewish people. And this is I think the reason why how our people survived throughout the years has to do with the Haggadah and this particular evening of the Seder night. The Seder night is a night of education, and we use all our abilities in education in order to carry out the Seder. And that is, we use different methods of teaching, each according to the child that we have, and that's one of the commandments according to the Mishnah. It says that "Ufi dat, ufi dat ben aviv v'lamdo," according to the child, that's how the father should teach him. So number one, that's in any educator is going to be teaching, being very aware of the audience, being aware of his students, and that's the number one aspect of education is to be aware of the people that you're teaching, and to do things on the level that they are used to and they can learn from. Number two, it's a night of education because we use questions. Questions, as we said before in one of our earlier lessons, questions is the goal, the key of education. Deborah Mayer, the author of the book The Power of Their Ideas, said teaching is mostly listening, and learning is mostly talking. Then we can get our students to be talking, to be asking questions, and to say whatever we want to teach them, to say it by themselves, then they'll remember it better. Teaching is mostly listening, and learning is mostly talking. If we have our students talking, asking questions, that is the goal. And the evening it says, in the Mishnah that we learned a couple of weeks ago, it says, and Muskim lo kol sheni v'kana ben shoel v'nein dat b'ben aviv v'lamdo. And the Braita continues over there that if the son doesn't ask and the wife asks, and if the wife doesn't ask, then he asks himself if he's all alone, and even if he's all alone, he asks himself questions. And if the two Talmidei Chachamim, they ask one another questions, because questioning is the way we expand our knowledge. So we try to get our kids, our students, our people at the center table to ask questions that are meaningful to them, and questions is the way that we expand our knowledge, and not just questions that are artificial, but questions that are really seeking to expand our knowledge. Our questions expand our knowledge. And the third aspect that makes it a line of education is that we use not only verbal communication, we use experiential. The matzah, the matzah, and the meaning that the matzah has. We use the maror, and the maror, the meaning that it has. So it's not just that we say, "Oh, life was hard in Egypt." We taste bitter herbs, and we experience work. We not only talk about the matzah that we had in Mitzrayim, we had actual matzah, lechem oni that they had in Mitzrayim, and we try to educate in many different ways. You ask even a kindergartner will know that why do we dip the celery in salt water? Because the salt water is the tears, they would cry. And is it true? Is it not true? It doesn't matter. The child is able to identify experience that they have with what they with the message that we're trying to get across. That the evening was an evening of Yetziat Mitzrayim and what it was like in Mitzrayim. Taking that step further is that we have to be aware that we are when we're talking about Yetziat Mitzrayim, we're not supposed to read the Haggadah. Don't read the Haggadah. It doesn't say anywhere in the Mishnah that we should read the Haggadah. It says we should tell the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. Reading is not telling. Reading is reading. Telling is more intimate. When a lecturer comes into a college class and just reads, it's pretty boring. when a lecturer tells a story, the lecturer is talking to the class that he has. So then it's already telling. And the Sapir, it has to be told, not read. And the Haggadah is a text that we can utilize. We can utilize to speak about Yetziat Mitzrayim, and it should be utilized. But we have to be aware that we're telling the story and a lot of our own elements. Now, we should use that text. It's a text that our Chaim said, and a lot of it is in the Mishnah. But always remember that we have to be telling the story to the people that are around to the table, telling the story to the table. So those are some ideas that we spoke about before. Light of education, according to the child, according to his ability, the questions, the questioning being the source of the way we learn, and experiential as well. And these are the things that make this a particular line of education that we should utilize. Again, why all these things on this night? This night is the secret of our survival. We have a question now from the live audience.
My question is, I think that my experience is on that. Last time, especially when we got to the Haggadah, and talked about the Makor and Soup and all that mountain, and people already want to start reading, the feeling of let's just finish it, let's just finish it. So based on what you said, would you recommend just skipping it?
Well, I'll tell you because I don't like to skip, but there were times when my children were younger, when my children, David and Shlomo, were younger, and we're telling the story and reading the Haggadah. Reading the Haggadah was not the way I was going to. There were no way to understand the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. So I would tell my wife or someone else to read the Haggadah, and at the same, or in those days we used to be with my in-laws. So people would be reading the Haggadah, and I'd be telling the story, and so the Haggadah would be read at the evening at the table. But the way I was talking to my children was with something they could understand and something that would have meaning for them. No, I didn't feel good. I knew it was being read, and at certain points, right? I also read the Haggadah at, let's say, certain points in order to fulfill a couple of requirements that are in the Mishnah. So I'll just repeat the question. People heard the question? I mean, the recording probably heard the question, yeah. So the question is, what do we do if there are people to say that the Haggadah is not a good, people want to just read it, get through with it, but it means that you can't tell the story. So what I recommend is that someone reads the Haggadah, and then someone deals with the people who have to be told the story to, not deals with. That's the main issue of the evening, the main point of the evening. So even though I wouldn't be reading the Haggadah at that point, I would be at certain points where I would read the Haggadah and join the reading, which is the Halachmanya, Manishtana. I would join the reading in Avadim Hayinu and the Techila, because those are the Gnut and Sheva. Those are the going from something embarrassing to something praiseworthy or something that we're proud of. And I would read Rabban Gamliel, Ayamed Kol Mishalom Shoshu Pesach, which I'm going to talk about tonight. Those are the things that I would make sure to read, because those are, let's say, the absolute requirements. The other parts are nice, they expand and they give meaning to people who understand them, and you can take a lot of time with them, but they're not the main. I also read Dayenu because it has a very special effect on the person who reads it. So that's so tonight, after this recap, does that answer your question? Tonight, first of all, thank you for asking. that's the whole point of the evening, to have questions being asked and creating an atmosphere where we encourage questions. That should always be in our teaching. We create an atmosphere where we encourage questions. I always state that at the outset of any of my classes. When I hand out a source sheet, on the bottom of the sheet it says, "I love questions. Please feel free to ask." And that should always be the atmosphere that we have in the classroom. So we have so now this is like a summary of the last couple of classes. Now I want to get into the main topic of tonight. There's two topics I want to talk about tonight. Oh, why is this night the secret of the survival of Am Yisrael? And this is, I think, the main point that I'd like to. I said this point a couple of weeks ago, and I want to review it all as well. Why is this the main reason that I believe that the Jewish people survive? And it has to do with something to do in the middle of the Seder. And this is the part that I say also as well. I say out loud, even though I'm telling the story to the people around me and maybe not reading the Haggadah, someone else is reading it. And this is the part that I say out loud. And that is when we cover the matzah in the middle and we start saying V'hi she'amda l'avotenu v'lanu. That part of the Haggadah, V'hi she'amda l'avotenu v'lanu, I believe is the part of the reason of our survival. And that is, I think, one of the main messages that we have to get over to our children and get over to everyone at the table. And I'll tell you why that's so important to our survival. The section, at that section, we cover the matzah and we raise our wine glasses. And the reason we raise our wine glasses is to emphasize the importance of this statement. And that stood for our fathers and us. Now, the word that, V'hi she'amda l'avotenu, to what is it referring? Joey, I have a live class here as well, so there could be anyone could answer. What is it? People in the audience, in the live audience. Right, exactly, Adele. V'hi she'amda l'avotenu v'lanu refers to the previous section, which speaks about Baruch Shomer Haftachato Yisrael. It's the Haftacha that Hashem made to Abraham Avinu, Brit Ne'Betarim. That stood, V'hi she'amda l'avotenu v'lanu. That stood for all throughout the time of Mitzrayim. When Yisrael knew they'd be going out, and they knew it probably from the promise of Brit Ne'Betarim, and also from Yosef. Yosef, a tzaddik, giving them the mitzvah of taking his bones out of Mitzrayim. So they knew they were going out. But the chidush of the Haggadah is that Brit Ne'Betarim, that Haftacha, goes throughout history. V'hi she'amda l'avotenu v'lanu, shelo echad bilvad amad alenu lechalotenu. But not only one stood up against us to destroy us, to annihilate us. And in every generation, they rise up against us, stand up against us to annihilate us. And Hashem saves us as a people, as a collective, from their hands. This is the key point of the Haggadah. To say it in other words, to paraphrase, it's we will survive. We will survive. And now, once you know that you're going to survive, once you know that there's some solution to the dire straits that you're presently found in as a nation, then you search hard for the solution. So knowing somehow we're getting out of this is like when you're looking for something in your house and you're sure it's over there, you, with a lot of determination and a lot of effort, you search for it and you find it. And a lot of times it's there. When you're sure something is there, you put that in. But if there's one chance that it's not there, that sort of deflates your whole effort. And if they tell you, the housekeeper might have went through your papers and threw a lot of papers and go, oh no, now it might still be there. but now you're not sure that it's there. When we're sure as a people that we're going to survive, we put all our effort into finding that solution and also into seeking that solution from Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So this night of Emunah, and by the way, that's what when we learned the Megillat Esther, when Mordechai tells Esther, "Im charish tacharish bet hazot v'hatzala yavo lidiu b'makom acher," if you're quiet in this time, there'll be salvation will come to the Jewish people from another place. Mordechai in Shoshana Bina, in the story of Megillat Esther, is sure that he's going to survive, and therefore he knows it's going to happen. So, getting across the message to our children, and the children are the key over here, because but we emphasizing that for ourselves, that we're going to survive no matter what, is the key point of the Seder. And I think one of the secrets of our survival as a people, and therefore we stop, we say the Yisham. And now, there's some beautiful tunes with Hisham, and we love the tunes, and it's very important to have the singing. It makes a lot of engagement in the evening. And I'm not saying not to do the tunes, but what I'm saying is first read V'hishamda, read it, explain it, understand it, get the message across, and then the tunes can be said, or the other way around. Either way, this point should not be passed over just by the singing, but it should be really emphasized. Okay, now that was all review of the last couple of weeks of classes, and now I'd like to talk about what classes that are the 2 points, 2 sections of the Haggadah that we're going to speak about today. One is the section that also has a beautiful song to it, and that is the section called Dayenu. The section called Dayenu also has a beautiful song to it, and you have the text. It'd be good to look at the text now. If not, we can. I'll say some of the text out loud. The beginning we know. In short, many are familiar with the text and that structure of the Dayenu. So let's first take the word Dayenu, and just to repeat the text. Let me open up if you have a Haggadah, open up to Dayenu, and we are.
Let me have your camera a minute.
It starts with Kama Ma'alot Torot. Hello, Selena. Hello, Joey. We have a live class here and also on Zoom.
Yeah.
So, it's Kama Ma'alot Tovot, the text of the Haggadah reads how many great things Kama Ma'alot Tovot B'makom Alenu. And then it starts, if Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim and didn't V'lo asa b'hem shefatim, and didn't do judgments upon them, Dayenu. If Hashem did judgments upon them, but not on their gods, Dayenu. Hashem did judgments on their gods, but didn't kill their firstborn, Dayenu. And the Dayenu is like a mantra or a response that repeats throughout. And what is the meaning of this word, Dayenu? And why is this being put into our into our psyche time and time again? Dayenu. So let's.
Sorry, but it was 3 people.
Hello. So what is this Dayenu? Dayenu is it can be several understandings of the word Dayenu. Dayenu, one of the understandings of the word Dayenu, it would be enough for us. In other words, we don't deserve more than that. That'd be enough for us. Dayenu, it's enough for us to be. It's what we deserve. We don't deserve more than that. Another understanding of it, Dayenu, is this would be enough for us to give thanks and to give praise. And we're not saying that we are not saying, and what another meaning we shouldn't take, that we would be that that would be enough for us, that we don't want more, but we should be that's enough to satisfy us. That's enough what we deserve. And the third point is the Yenu is recognizing each stage of the process and recognizing that sometimes in the process there's ups and downs, and if we achieve one thing and we have not yet achieved the ultimate goal, there's importance in the process. So even just taking us out of Mitzrayim and not giving us the Torah, uh, that's an important step forward for the Jewish people, and that step itself would have been enough. Okay, so there's a question in the room. Yes, Adele. No, I don't think that this piyut was said in Mitzrayim, and I don't think. Well, we know at Kriyat Yamsuf they thank God, but the Bnei Yisrael, I'm not. When the Makot came, I think they were. We have no evidence of that they thank God. I think the Dayenu piyut is creating something in us that is helping us to be aware of the steps of something of the event that happened. Um, well, the Torah quotes the complainers. We don't hear the people thinking as Yeshia because okay, the Torah wants to explain why certain things happened and why. So yes, if they would have, it could be that they thank God, but the complainers are the reason why things happened went south sometimes. So this there how many sentences of it? The word Dayenu is having us recognize the process. This is such a critical point that sometimes the process has ups and downs. And saying Dayenu at this point in time allows us to say, you know what? Even this point, even if we don't achieve all of our goal, having gotten to this point is such a great thing for us. We can look at the present situation with the Jewish people, and that we have a state, a Jewish state, first time in 2,000 years that we have a Jewish state. Now, is it everything that we hoped for? Is this the full Geulah, the full redemption? No, it's not. And that's obvious that there's still more. But can we still say Dayenu? Can we still say we're happy about what we achieved to this, what Hashem has given us to this point? Absolutely. Not only absolutely, but it's critical to be aware at different levels, at different stages of an ongoing process, that this is something that was beneficial. And therefore, Dayenu, we should, this piyut is getting us to realize the importance of process and of even partial completion of a big and complex, many-faceted goal. Yes. Right, right. It's really being thankful for what we have along the process, even though we didn't achieve the full goal of what we're doing. So the Dayenu is teaching us about being thankful for the process, and we can live that not only in our national life, but Adele's saying in our personal life as well. Yes. Adele, I'm not sure everyone. Do people hear Adele's question? I don't know. Not sure if you're hearing. Well, let me know if you can't hear it. Because yes, go ahead. Yes.
Don't have to finish everything, but I think knowing that you don't have to do everything, recognize
yes, exactly. Exactly. So being aware of the small piece. Now, also, this is something to take into our lives, not only about Pesach, and that is when we think about something, when we give thanks to people, there's different ways of giving thanks. And one way of giving thanks is thank you very much for the dinner, mom, or honey, from if it's your wife or husband that made the dinner. Uh, Now, that's great. It's great. It's expressing gratitude. But then when you can be specific about something, well, well, Michal, I can't believe you went out, you shopped for the best products for this meal. You got the freshest tomatoes. You bought garlic, fresh garlic in season, and I can taste the fresh oregano that you grew and put into the tomato sauce and whatever. You're not just giving a general thanks. You're being specific about what you appreciated. The person says, I am seen. My great things, the things that I do are recognized. By the way, when I was describing how to thank this, sometimes I remember to do that, not always, with Michal. But there's when we thank in detail and in specifics. What Dayenu is getting us to realize that we have to be thankful for every step in the process as well. And when we thank, and we do break it down into steps, then we get a greater feeling of the magnitude of the process. We get a greater feeling of the complexity and the multifaceted nature of the process. And and we're going to take some of the Dayenus over here and look at them and in order to sort of give greater resolution to Yetziat Mitzrayim and the meaning. But before getting into the details, before looking at the trees, how many Dayenus are there? Well, I don't know if you have the text in front of you to count, but there's a hint in the way the Dayenu begins. The Dayenu begins, Kama ma'alot tovot l'makom alenu. How many ma'alot, how many ma'alot are ways of going up or steps? How many steps Hashem has given us? And Adele gives an answer. 15. There are 15 Dayanus. And what is the first one is taking us out of Egypt, and the last one is Ilu Iknisanu Be'eretz Yisrael. V'lo bana lanu et beit ha'bechira Dayenu. If God has took us into Israel, but not gave us the house of choice, and there was a house that He chose, the Beit HaMikdash, Dayenu. So these 15 are called Ma'alot, and how did you know that Adele that it was 15? She doesn't have a text in front of her. So Adele thought of the Shira Ma'alot, that there are 15 Shira Ma'alot in the Psalms that begin a song of ascent. 15, because of the 15 steps that separate Ezrat Nashim to Ezrat Yisrael. There's 15 steps in the middle to go from one to the next. And those steps, the Levim would stand upon them, the Levites would stand upon them and play their music and sing their songs. So just to recap some of the ideas of Dayenu, recognizing the small steps that make up a complex process and giving thanks for those steps. Being aware, even if the process hasn't reached fruition and completion and perfection, but giving thanks for steps in the process as well. And also being aware that we don't even deserve even the small steps, and definitely not the whole process. Yes, another question. No, the Shiramatos are not parallel. The Dayenu, they're not. The Dayenu is more or less giving a more or less chronological story from Yetziat Mitzrayim to Beit HaBechira, and the Shiramalot. Not on first glance, the question, I've been going through the Shiramalot in my head. I don't really see a connection, but maybe that could be a way to look into it. Well, no, clearly Ba'al Haggadah, the people who wrote the Haggadah are referring to the steps in the Beit Hamikdash, and that's really the idea of giving the feeling of Beit Hamikdash, uh, and maybe this even was a song. I mean, if we can imagine how it was done in real life, that the Levim would go up step by step and would maybe even sing this song, what's the other side? Dayenu, they go up one step. And then, yeah, they go up another step. And it could be that that was not only a way of singing, but it was, and everyone would say, the whole crowd, Beit HaMikdash full of people, hundreds of thousands of people would say, Dayenu, and they go up another step. So this, imagining how it was actually done in real life in the Beit HaMikdash. And the physical steps going up, each step reminds us that to be thankful for step after step. Now, let's go into the details of Dayenu. Some of the details, we're not going through all 15, but we'll do some of it. It's another important idea that I'd like to get across, and that is that we went. It's the first one. Ilu Hotzianu we were saying v'lo asabem shefatim Dayenu. If God took us out of Egypt, but didn't do judgment and punishment to the nation that enslaved us, that would have been enough for us. But He did punish them as well. Why is that punishment so important? What if we just went out and the people who did the crime didn't get punished? Well, that would be enough because we would be out of Beit Avadim, would be the house of bondage, and the house of bondage means that not only the Jews were slaves there, but everyone was slaves. It's like being under communism, where everyone is really a slave to the country, to the state. But having a sense of there was justice done. The people who enslaved us, the people who tried to murder us and tried to annihilate us, got punished. Paro came groveling to Moshe after he said, "Who is God? That I should let the people go. Who is Hashem? Who is Yud Kei Vav Kei? That I should let the people go." And now he says, "Adonai Tzadik v'ani v'ami Rishaim." God is righteous and right, and me and my nation, we are evil. This is a sense of, wow, this is great. So there's a need also that justice be done, and the feeling God put out to the world that He's a God of justice. And then we go to the next step. Yes. Justice, the sense of justice. I should have let you guess it. The second Dayenu, each one builds on the next one. If He had judged them, but not destroyed or dealt with their gods. Now we have to realize that Yetziat Mitzrayim was not just taking Bnei Yisrael out of slavery. It was destroying the previous belief system. The Egyptian gods were humiliated. We think about the plagues. Some of the plagues clearly are attacking the Egyptian belief system. And we know that the Egyptians worshipped the Nile. The Nile was the source of their fresh water, and the flooding of the Nile was the source of the fertility of the Nile Valley and Egypt's ability to sustain a world power at the time. The first Makkah deals with the Nile. The water sources become blood. Frogs. The sun was the god of the Egypts. In fact, the sun, we know the name of the sun goddess, which is Ra. And Ra means the son of Ra, the son of the sun god, whose name was Ra. So Hashem not only judged the Egyptians, but he humiliated their gods and their belief system. The Abarbanel, when he speaks about the Yehuda and the Ten Simanim, the Yehuda would give signs. The Tzach Adash Be'achav would say that each of these three sections was making another point about what the true belief system was, that God exists, he intervenes in the world, and intervenes specifically for Am Yisrael. And that's what not only Paro and the Egyptians, but the whole world knew about with the Makor. So he judged the people, humiliated the Egyptian gods, the sun god with darkness, the water, the Nile with blood, the frogs, the animals that they worshipped, right? In Dever, they all died, and we know they worship animals from the pasuk in the Torah. So this is humiliating their gods. Had he not done that, but he did that also. Haraket bechorehem, ilu asa be'elohem v'lo haraket bechorehem Dayenu. That was not only humiliation, but a rough blow to Paro and to all of Egypt. Ilu haraket bechorehem v'lo natan lo et mamonam. Now, why is having money so important? Why is having that? How can we put that on the level of humiliating their gods? But we think historically, in America, after the Civil War, for example, after the war, the slaves were freed. Oh, hunky dory. Now what do? They were exploited. They were exploited by people who had money. You're liberated now, but you're still poor, and that a lot of times in American history, the newly freed slaves ended up working back on their land, getting land, but have to work under very, very tough conditions. And so we came out of Mitzrayim with enough wealth to build the Mishkan. And when we look at, we have Zahav, Kesef, Nechoshet, Torah, Shani, Shish. We had all these. We have Avnei Shom, Avnei Miluim, precious stones, textiles. Where do we get those from? A lot of it came from the spoils taken from Mitzrayim, and this is one of the other things of Dayenu. Each one of these ideas could be focused on and really have us appreciate the different aspects and steps in Yetziat Mitzrayim. And it ends, of course, with had if God had, and going to the last three, if God had given us a Torah and not brought us Eretz Dayenu, that's enough to be grateful for. And when we think about it, having the Torah and not having Eretz Israel was been our condition for many, many years. And we're able to, we're able to appreciate the Torah even without Eretz Israel. But having Eretz Israel makes that appreciation much greater when you have a whole society that is following aspects of the Torah, and that is the basis of society. And Pesach is one of those things that most of the Israeli society does, as is Brit Milah. And then, of course, the stage we're at now, and even if we came into it and said we don't have a Beit HaMikdash, that'd be enough to be thankful for. And that's exactly what we are now. We are the Eretz Israel. We do not have the Beit HaMikdash. And still, we're able to recognize the greatness to recognize and be grateful for this step in the process. Yes. Yes, getting the Torah, having it itself, having the Beit HaMikdash, and then going further. I mean, we can take it further. What part of our mission of what as a people, definitely. But it's not to say that Yetziat Mitzrayim without the Torah is nothing. It's something, It's not everything. Having the Torah and not having Eretz Israel is something. It's not everything. Because, I mean, just to take your question a step further, it's not about keeping Shabbat individually. It's about having a society that that respects respects a day of rest for the whole society. And what does that society look like? And how does it become a model society for the world? This is the point of the Torah. It's as Yeshayahu says, to become the Or Goyim, to become a light to the nations. You become a light to the nation as a nation, not as individuals. And whenever we're a nation within another country, even in the country that is a very open country, liberal country like America, we still don't feel fully at home. In your own home, there's a different feeling. Let's say you're a guest at a friend's house. When you're a guest at a friend's house, a very good friend, you don't feel at your own home. Even if it's a very good friend, when you're in your own home, you behave differently. You have a sense of, we in Israel, this is home. What are the Goyim going to say? We don't care. We don't care. This is our home. We feel it's a whole different feeling. People, looking at this from other countries, from the United States, won't know what it's like, do not know what it's like to be in Israel, in a Jewish state, and fully expressing ourselves Jewishly. And it's a different feeling, and therefore, it's so having the Torah, not having it, but it's still something. I mean, we didn't have the Torah, and where would we be as a nation? We wouldn't be here. The Torah, even though the people who had brought us back to the state of Israel, the Jewish state, the ones who actually carried it through were not great believers in Torah. They wanted to make the new Jew and get rid of the exiled Jew and all that. It was still that hope that the religious people kept alive, that found its flowering in them, but there had to be roots, and the roots were the Torah. So, yes, the Torah is the point. It's not the end point. It's the beginning. It's a point along, an important step along the way. I mean, and let's say a necessary step, but not the goal. Not the goal. So this is Dayenu. We're at the stage we're at now. We have Eretz Israel. We don't have the Beit HaMikdash, and that is the stage where we say Dayenu, that even having a Jewish state, being in Eretz Israel is a great thing to be grateful for. But of course, when we have the Beit HaMikdash, that'll be the ultimate. And sometimes I believe that we should take the last 100 years or 150 years of Jewish history and make a new Dayenu for that 100 years. And there is a Haggadah that I have that does that. That takes the foundation of the state. It's called the Haggadah of the founding of the state, and it takes that Dayenu. Maybe next year I'll teach that Dayenu as well when the Beit HaMikdash is built. So this is some of the ideas connected with the Seder. Remember to have a Seder that's meaningful because we're telling the story, not reading the Haggadah. That because we're focusing on the main points, giving time for questions, and an important idea that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, and it is that clearly the karpas was meant to be something to eat along the way. The karpas is meant to satisfy your hunger while you're reading, and you shouldn't be hungry. So it's in order to take your time and have a great Seder. Thank you for joining, people live and people on Zoom. And this class will be starting again, not next week, which is Pesach, but the week after next. We'll be starting about the foundation of the Jewish state, the greatness leading up to Yom Ha'atzmaut, the great events and that happened to our people, and the relative significance of the Jewish state. We won't be talking politics, which we'll be talking political ideas and the great redemption. Thank you. Chag Sameach, and good to see you all again. Arkady and Joey, thank you for joining. Chag Sameach.